First Contact Farce. The exploration vessel, Curiosity Unbound, drifted through the uncharted region of the Arcturus Arm, its sleek hull gleaming under the light of a distant binary star system. Captain Maya Chen stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the vast emptiness of space through the panoramic viewport. The ship represented humanity's furthest venture into the galaxy, a testament to their insatiable curiosity and determination to explore beyond the boundaries of their solar system. Captain, we're detecting an anomaly at coordinates 227 Alpha 459, announced Lieutenant Rajat Patel, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface of the sensor station. It appears to be artificial in nature. Chen straightened her uniform and nodded. Put it on screen, Lieutenant. The main display shimmered to life, revealing a massive structure emerging from behind the shadow of a gas giant. The object was undeniably a spacecraft, but unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Its hull was covered in what appeared to be ornate metallic scales that shifted colors under the starlight, creating patterns reminiscent of ancient Earth calligraphy. Protruding spines and elaborate towers dotted its surface, giving it the appearance of a floating cathedral merged with a fortress. "Well, I'll be damned," whispered Commander Jack O'Neill, the ship's tactical officer. "Looks like we finally found the neighbors, and they've got a flair for the dramatic." Dr. Elena Kuznetsova, the ship's xenolinguist, leaned forward in her seat. The design suggests a culture with deep aesthetic traditions, possibly hierarchical, given the vertical emphasis of those structures. The bridge crew watched in silent awe as the alien vessel slowly turned toward them, revealing its true scale. The Curiosity Unbound, pride of Earth's fleet at 800 meters long, was dwarfed by the alien craft, which sensors estimated at nearly 12 kilometers from bow to stern. "They're hailing us, Captain," Paddle reported, his voice tight with tension. Audio and visual transmission. Chen took a deep breath. "First contact protocol, everyone. Remember your training. Open the channel." The main screen shifted to reveal the interior of what could only be the alien vessel's command center. Standing, or rather, hovering, at its center was a being unlike anything humans had imagined. It possessed 6 tentacle-like appendages that undulated with graceful precision, a torso covered in iridescent scales, and 3 eyes arranged in a triangular pattern above what appeared to be a breathing apparatus. The being wore an elaborate harness adorned with gemstones and metallic emblems that presumably denoted rank or status. When it spoke, the universal translator struggled momentarily before rendering its words in English. "Attention, primitive vessel," the alien being intoned, its voice resonating with a depth that seemed to vibrate the very deck plates of the Curiosity Unbound. "You have entered the sovereign territory of the Grand Vexari Dominion, rulers of the 7 spiral arms, keepers of the eternal flame, and guardians of the cosmic order. I am Supreme Overlord Zex Kaltar, 17th of the blood lineage, commander of the infinite fleet, and bearer of the crystal crown." The alien paused, clearly expecting a reaction of awe or terror. Instead, Lieutenant Patel had to quickly mute his comm as a snort of laughter escaped him. Chen shot him a warning glance. Zex Kaltar continued, apparently oblivious to the human's reaction. "You will immediately power down your crude propulsion systems, deactivate your primitive weapons, and prepare to be boarded for assessment of your species' suitability for integration into the Dominion's hierarchy. Resistance is both futile and punishable by immediate disintegration." An uncomfortable silence fell over the bridge of the Curiosity Unbound. Chen cleared her throat. "Supreme Overlord Zex Kaltar, I am Captain Maya Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Curiosity Unbound. We come in peace and apologize for any territorial transgression, which was unintentional. We are on a mission of peaceful exploration and scientific discovery." The alien's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. "Your designation and purpose are irrelevant. You will comply with our demands immediately or face the consequences of your insolence." Commander O'Neill leaned toward Chen and whispered, "Is this guy for real?" Unfortunately, His comment was picked up by the ship's communications system. Zexkaltar's appendages rippled with what the humans would later learn was extreme indignation. You dare question the authority of the Dominion. Your disrespect will not be tolerated. Chen tried to salvage the situation. Supreme Overlord, we meant no disrespect. Humans often use humor as a way to diffuse tension in unfamiliar situations. Humor. The alien's translator seemed to struggle with the concept. Explain this concept. Dr. Kuznetsova stepped forward. Humor is a form of communication that creates amusement and laughter. It often involves unexpected connections or subversion of expectations. The alien commander remained silent for several seconds, processing this information. This concept is unknown to us. The Vexari Dominion has ruled the stars for 12,000 cycles without the need for such primitive communication methods. O'Neill couldn't help himself. 12,000 years without laughing. No wonder you guys needed all those fancy decorations to cheer yourselves up. Chen winced, but before she could reprimand her tactical officer, something unexpected happened. From somewhere off-screen on the alien vessel, a sound erupted that could only be described as a strangled chirp. One of the other Vexari had apparently found O'Neill's comment amusing. Zexkaltar whirled around, his appendages flailing in apparent anger. "Who dares?" he thundered. The bridge of the Curiosity Unbound fell silent as they witnessed what appeared to be an internal conflict aboard the alien vessel. Eventually, Zexkaltar turned back to the screen. "Your disruptive influence will not be tolerated," the alien commander declared. "We will now demonstrate the power of the Dominion to ensure your compliance." The massive alien ship's exterior began to glow as weapon systems charged. Sensors on the Curiosity Unbound screamed warnings of energy buildups far beyond anything human technology could generate. "Shields at maximum," ordered Chen calmly. "But do not power weapons. I repeat, do not return hostile action." The tactical officer looked at her incredulously. "Captain, their energy readings are off the charts. Our shields won't." "Trust me," Chen interrupted, a faint smile playing at the corners of her mouth. The alien vessel fired a blinding beam of energy that streaked across space toward the human ship. The bridge crew braced for impact. But instead of the expected devastation, the beam struck the shields of the Curiosity Unbound and simply vanished. On the view screen, Zexkaltar's three eyes widened in what could only be shock. "Impossible," the alien commander declared. "No species possesses the technology to withstand the Dominion's quantum phase disruptors." Chen's smile widened. "Actually, Supreme Overlord, we encountered similar technology during our exploration of the Cygnus region. Our engineers found that a simple probability field generator renders quantum weapons largely ineffective. One of our physicists described it as quantum uncertainty made certain." The alien commander's appendages went rigid. "You lie. Such technology would require an understanding of subspace mechanics beyond what any young species could achieve." Dr. Rodriguez, the ship's chief scientist, joined the conversation. "Oh, that little problem. We solved that when we were trying to make better coffee machines for zero-G environments. Turns out, quantum field manipulation is pretty handy for keeping the milk from separating in space. The weapons defense was just a nice bonus." The stunned silence from the alien vessel was profound. Finally, Zexkaltar spoke again, but the bombastic tone had diminished considerably. "You developed advanced quantum field manipulation technology for a beverage preparation device." Chen shrugged. "Humans take their coffee very seriously." Another strangled chirp of amusement came from somewhere on the alien bridge, louder this time. Zexkaltar's appendages twitched in what the humans interpreted as extreme agitation. "Perhaps," Chen suggested diplomatically, "instead of continuing with threats and demonstrations, we might consider a more productive exchange of ideas. I assure you, the Curiosity Unbound has no hostile intentions toward the Vexari Dominion." Zexkaltar seemed to consider this proposition. "Your proposal has merit, human captain. However, protocols must be observed. You will send a diplomatic delegation to our vessel to be properly assessed and catalogued according to Dominion procedures. Chen nodded. We would be honored to establish diplomatic relations. However, in the spirit of mutual respect, we request that the meeting take place in neutral space, perhaps aboard one of our shuttlecraft. The alien commander's appendages writhed in what appeared to be internal conflict. Such an arrangement is unprecedented in 12,000 cycles of Dominion protocol. Then perhaps, Chen suggested with a smile, it's time for something unprecedented. After all, isn't that what exploration is all about? After a tense moment, Zexcalter made a gesture that caused the ornate harness to emit a soft chime. Very well, human captain. We will meet on neutral ground. But be warned, any deception will be met with the full might of the Dominion. As the transmission ended, the bridge crew of the Curiosity Unbound exhaled collectively. Well, O'Neill said, breaking the silence, that went better than expected. I thought we were space dust for sure. Chen turned to him with a wry smile. The greatest strength of humanity has always been our adaptability, Commander. And sometimes that includes knowing when to be serious, and when a little humor might save your life. As preparations began for the unprecedented diplomatic meeting, none of the crew could have predicted that this encounter would not only change the fate of humanity, but would fundamentally transform the 12,000-year-old Vexari Dominion itself, all because humans couldn't stop making jokes at the most inappropriate times. Diplomatic disasters. The shuttle cultural exchange hovered at the designated meeting point, equidistant between the imposing Vexari warship and the Curiosity Unbound. Captain Chen had chosen a small diplomatic team. Herself, Dr. Kuznetsova, the xenolinguist, Dr. Rodriguez, the chief scientist, and against her better judgment, Commander O'Neill for security. The shuttle's interior had been hastily retrofitted for the meeting, with a circular table and accommodations hopefully suitable for the Vexari physiology. Remember, Chen briefed her team one final time. Our goal is peaceful exchange of knowledge and establishing diplomatic relations. No unnecessary jokes. O'Neill. The tactical officer placed a hand over his heart in mock offense. Captain, I am the very soul of diplomacy. That's what worries me. Chen muttered as the sensors indicated an approaching Vexari craft. The alien shuttle was a work of art. Its hull comprised of the same shifting metallic scales as the warship, but arranged in patterns that seemed to flow like liquid. It docked with precision to the human shuttle's airlock. When the doors slid open, Supreme Overlord Zexcalter entered, accompanied by 3 other Vexari. Each wore harnesses of varying complexity, apparently denoting their rank. The least decorated Vexari, who they would learn was named Tixforin, carried what appeared to be a recording device. Greetings, Supreme Overlord, Chen said with a respectful nod. Welcome aboard the cultural exchange. The Vexari leader's appendages performed a complex gesture. We acknowledge your primitive hospitality, Captain of Earth. Dr. Kuznetsova's eyes narrowed slightly at the translator's rendering, but she remained silent. As the delegation took their positions around the table, the Vexari hovering rather than sitting, Chen began the formal introductions of her team. When she finished, Zexcalter didn't reciprocate, apparently considering his subordinates unworthy of individual introduction. So, O'Neill said to break the awkward silence, "That's a nice harness thing you've got there. Very shiny." Zexcalter's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. This is the mantle of supreme authority, woven from the crystalline fibers of extinct stellar cores and inscribed with the complete legal codex of the Dominion. It has been worn by 17 generations of supreme overlords. Cool, O'Neill nodded appreciatively. We've got something similar back on Earth. We call them ugly Christmas sweaters. People wear them once a year at parties. The translator struggled momentarily before delivering O'Neill's words to the Vexari. The reaction was immediate. The Supreme Overlord scales shifted to a deep purple hue, while the lowest-ranked Vexari, Tixforin, emitted another of those strange chirping sounds before quickly silencing himself. You dare compare the sacred mantle to festive garments. Zex Kaltar's voice had taken on a dangerous edge. Chen intervened quickly. Commander O'Neill was attempting to establish common ground through cultural comparison. Supreme Overlord. Perhaps we could move to more substantive matters. Dr. Rodriguez seized the opportunity. We're particularly interested in learning about Vexeri scientific achievements. 12,000 cycles of development must have yielded remarkable technologies. This redirected the conversation as intended. Zex Kelter began an elaborate monologue about Vexeri technological superiority, with particular emphasis on their quantum phase disruptors, the same weapons that had proven ineffective against the human ship. Fascinating, Rodriguez commented when the alien finally paused. Our own development of quantum field technology began as a side project when investigating practical applications of entanglement theory. As I mentioned earlier, one of our first commercial applications was in beverage preparation. You continue to claim that your species developed advanced quantum manipulation for refreshments. The second-ranked Vexeri spoke for the first time, their voice tinged with disbelief. Necessity is the mother of invention, Chen offered with a slight smile. Humans get very creative when solving everyday problems, like the time we invented superabsorbent polymers for feminine hygiene products and ended up using the same technology for agriculture in drought regions, added Dr. Kuznetsova. The Vexeri exchanged looks that even across species barriers seemed confused. Your developmental path is disordered, Zex Kalter declared. The Dominion's technological advancement follows the sacred progression established by the founder engineers and maintained through disciplined adherence to hierarchical research protocols. O'Neill couldn't help himself. So you're saying you do everything by the book? No wonder you're surprised by our coffee machines. Another strangled chirp from Tixforeign. This time, Zex Kaltar's appendages shot out, seizing the junior officer's recording device. You are relieved of duty, junior documentation officer. Return to the shuttle immediately. As Tixforeign retreated, Chen noticed something troubling. The junior officer's scales had shifted to a dull gray color that screamed distress across species boundaries. Was that necessary, Supreme Overlord? She asked carefully. In human culture, laughter is considered a natural and healthy response. The Dominion does not recognize laughter as appropriate behavior for subordinate ranks, the alien leader stated flatly. Only those of cerebral caste 12 and above are permitted emotional expression beyond baseline devotion. The human delegation exchanged troubled glances. Dr. Kuznetsova leaned forward. Are you saying that your society restricts emotional expression based on hierarchical position? Of course, the second-ranked Vexori responded, as if explaining something obvious. How else would order be maintained? The lower castes lack the neurological refinement to handle complex emotional states. Rodriguez frowned. But your junior officer clearly has the capacity for humor appreciation. We observed this response multiple times. A defect in conditioning. Zex Kalter dismissed. The specimen will be recalibrated upon return to the Dominion core worlds. Chen felt a chill at the casual way the alien discussed what sounded like forced personality alteration. Perhaps we should discuss the practical aspects of our species' coexistence. The galaxy is vast, with room for different philosophical approaches. The diplomatic meeting continued for several hours, growing increasingly strained. The humans attempted to establish common ground, while the Vexeri insisted on categorizing Earth according to their rigid hierarchical metrics. When a break was finally called, the Vexeri returned to their shuttle for private consultation. As soon as they were alone, Dr. Kuznetsova exploded. They're essentially running a massive case system. Did you hear how they discussed the junior officer? Like a malfunctioning appliance. Not our place to judge their cultural evolution, Chen reminded her, though her expression suggested she shared the sentiment. Actually, Rodriguez interjected, examining data on his tablet. I've been analyzing their biological readings during our conversation. The junior officer showed identical neurological complexity to the Supreme Overlord. Their claim about neurological refinement appears to be propaganda rather than biological fact. O'Neill leaned back in his chair. So their whole empire is built on convincing most of their population they're biologically inferior when they're not. That's some next-level gaslighting. The conversation halted as the airlock cycled again. But instead of the full delegation, only Tix-Foran entered. Scales shifted to an anxious pattern of gray and blue. Junior Documentation Officer. Chen rose in surprise. Is everything all right? The Vexeri glanced nervously at the airlock. The Supreme Overlord is still in consultation. I came unauthorized. The translator rendered the alien's voice as trembling slightly. Is it true that in human society, all members are permitted to laugh? The simple question carried so much weight that the humans exchanged meaningful glances. Yes, Chen answered gently. In our culture, emotional expression isn't restricted by rank or position. Everyone has the right to happiness, curiosity, and self-expression. And your society functions without emotional stratification. The alien's appendages trembled slightly. Rodriguez nodded. We found that diverse perspectives and free expression actually lead to faster innovation. Like our quantum coffee machines. The Dominion teaches that species without proper emotional hierarchy inevitably destroy themselves. Tix-Foran said softly, but your achievements suggest otherwise. Wait, O'Neill leaned forward. Are you saying your whole civilization has been taught not to laugh unless they're high-ranking enough? The capacity for humor appreciation is considered a security risk in lower castes. The alien confirmed. The ability to perceive incongruity might lead to questioning of established protocols. That actually makes perfect sense from a control perspective. Kuznetsov amused. Humor often involves recognizing absurdity in power structures. Tix-Foran moved closer, voice dropping to what was clearly intended as a whisper. There are rumors of a resistance. Those who question the emotional stratification. They call themselves the free expressions. The airlock alert chimed, indicating the return of the Vexari delegation. Tix-Foran hurriedly moved back to a formal position. Supreme Overlord Zex Kalter re-entered with his subordinates, appendages rigid with what seemed to be fresh determination. After consultation with the Tactical Division, we have reassessed our approach. The Dominion hereby extends an invitation for your diplomatic team to visit our command vessel for a formal cultural exchange. Chen caught the subtle change in Tix-Foran's coloration, a flash of alarm quickly suppressed. We're honored by the invitation, she replied carefully, but perhaps we should continue our discussions in neutral space before proceeding to such a significant step. The invitation is non-negotiable, the Supreme Overlord stated flatly. As the superior civilization, it is our prerogative to establish the terms of cultural integration. The atmosphere in the shuttle had shifted palpably. What had begun as an awkward but potentially productive exchange now felt distinctly threatening. Integration, O'Neill repeated, hand drifting subtly toward his concealed sidearm. That sounds a lot less like diplomacy and more like annexation. Zex Kalter's appendages performed a gesture that somehow conveyed dismissal. Semantics are irrelevant. The Dominion has determined that human technology presents both opportunity and risk. Your species must be properly categorized and contained. Chen stood slowly. I'm afraid we must decline your invitation. Supreme Overlord, Earth has no interest in being contained by any external power. Your consent was not requested, merely your compliance. The alien leader activated a device on his harness. Containment protocols initiated. The shuttle system suddenly flickered as an energy field enveloped it. The human delegation's communicators went dead simultaneously. What have you done? Chen demanded. A simple isolation field, the second-ranked Vexari explained with evident satisfaction. Your vessel is now cut off from communication with your ship. You will accompany us to the command vessel for processing. Chen exchanged glances with her team. They were outgunned and trapped, with no way to signal the Curiosity unbound. But before she could formulate a response, something unexpected happened. Tixvorin moved suddenly, appendages flashing to the Supreme Overlord's harness. Before anyone could react, the junior officer had activated something that caused the containment field to collapse. "Go," Tixvorin urged the humans. "Return to your vessel. Tell others about the free expressions." Chaos erupted in the confined space of the shuttle. O'Neill reacted first, pushing Chen toward the human side of the airlock, while drawing his weapon to cover their retreat. Rodriguez and Kuznetsova quickly followed. "Traitor!" Zex Kaltar's roar was accompanied by a surge of energy from his harness that struck Tixvorin, causing the junior officer to collapse in a heap of twitching appendages. As the airlock sealed behind the retreating humans, Shen caught a final glimpse of the brave Vexari officer. Despite the obvious pain, Tixvorin's scales had shifted to a pattern of brilliant colors they hadn't seen before, and the translator's final rendering haunted Chen as they raced back toward the Curiosity Unbound. Freedom is worth laughing for. The diplomatic disaster had just become something far more significant. Humanity hadn't just encountered an alien empire, they had unwittingly inspired a revolution. The Laughter Revolution. "All hands, battle stations." Captain Chen's voice rang through the Curiosity Unbound as she sprinted onto the bridge with the returning diplomatic team. "Tactical status of the Vexari vessel. They're charging weapons systems, Captain," Lieutenant Podol reported grimly. "Energy readings off the charts." "Shields at maximum," Chen ordered. "Plot an escape vector. Fastest route back to human space." The massive Vexari warship loomed on the view screen, its ornate exterior now pulsing with ominous energy as weapons ports opened along its length. "Captain," Communications Officer Liu interrupted, "we're receiving transmissions from within the Vexari vessel, but not on their command frequencies. Multiple sources, encrypted channels." Chen exchanged looks with Dr. Kuznetsova. "The free expressions, possibly," the xenolinguist agreed. The junior officer mentioned a resistance movement. "Put it through," Chen decided. The bridge speakers crackled with alien voices, the translator working overtime to convert multiple speakers. Humans demonstrated emotional freedom, alternative social structures possible. Supreme Overlord launched containment protocol. 12,000 cycles of suppression. "They're having a revolution over there," O'Neill realized. "Because we made a few jokes." Dr. Rodriguez shook his head. "Not just jokes. We showed them an alternative to their rigid hierarchy. A society where technology and creativity flourish without emotional suppression." "Captain," Patil cut in urgently, "they're firing." The Vexari warship unleashed a barrage of energy weapons. The Curiosity Unbound shuddered as its shields absorbed the assault, but held firm. "Return fire," O'Neill asked, fingers hovering over the tactical controls. Chen hesitated. "No, that's exactly what they want. To prove that species without their emotional hierarchy default to violence. Hold position, maintain defensive posture only." "Captain," Liu called again, incoming transmission from the Vexari vessel. "Command channel this time." The view screen flickered to show a chaotic scene on the Vexari bridge. Supreme Overlord Zex Kaltar was gesticulating wildly as subordinates moved frantically in the background. "Your contamination of our society will not be tolerated," the alien leader raged. "The Dominion has maintained perfect order for 12,000 cycles before your disruptive influence." Chen stood tall. "We offered peaceful exchange. Supreme Overlord, you responded with attempted kidnapping and unprovoked attack. This isn't about contamination. It's about control. You know nothing of governance." Zex Kaltar's appendages writhed in fury. "The emotional stratification is necessary. Without it, society collapses into chaos. Exactly what you've unleashed aboard my vessel." As if to punctuate his point, alarms began blaring on the Vexari bridge. A subordinate approached Zex Kaltar, urgently reporting something the translator couldn't fully capture. "What do you mean? The propulsion systems are offline?" the Supreme Overlord demanded. Override the sabotage. Chen glanced at her officers. Status of the Vexeri ship. Their main engines are powering down. Paddle confirmed, studying his sensors. Internal communications appear fragmented. They're experiencing coordinated disruptions across multiple systems. An idea began forming in Chen's mind. Dr. Rodriguez, if we wanted to help this free expressions movement without direct military intervention, what options do we have? The scientist considered for a moment. Their communication systems are key. If we could broadcast widely across their vessel, instead of just to their command center, could we use their own transmission protocols against them? Chen pressed. Feed their internal network with our cultural database. Rodriguez's eyes lit up. Better yet, we could transmit entertainment content. Human comedy would be the perfect subversive tool against a regime that outlaws laughter. Make it happen, Chen ordered. Lieutenant Patel, work with Rodriguez to access their communication grid. As the officers worked, the situation aboard the Vexeri vessel deteriorated further. The command transmission remained open, providing the humans with a window into the unfolding chaos. More alarms sounded as system after system reported failures or unauthorized access. Supreme Overlord, one of the Vexeri officers reported, the lower decks have barricaded themselves. They're sharing emotional expressions freely. Impossible. Zex Kaltar thundered. Activate the neural suppressors. The suppressors are offline, Supreme Overlord. And the emergency armory has been compromised. Chen leaned toward Kuznetsova. Neural suppressors. Most likely technology to enforce their emotional stratification. The xenolinguist hypothesized. Without it, their entire social structure is vulnerable. Captain, we've gained access to their internal network, Rodriguez announced triumphantly. What should we transmit? Chen considered for a moment. Start with Charlie Chaplin. Visual comedy translates across cultures. Then some musical comedies. The contrast between rhythm and unexpected lyrical content might resonate with them. You want to fight an advanced alien warship with silent films and show tunes? O'Meal asked incredulously. Their weapons aren't the threat, Commander, Chen replied. Their ideology is. And nothing combats rigid ideology like absurdity. Within minutes, the humans had infiltrated the Vexeri vessel's internal communication system. Throughout the massive warship, screens and holographic projectors that normally displayed command directives and propaganda began showing scenes from Earth's rich history of comedy, from silent film physical humor to sophisticated satire. The effect was immediate and profound. The command channel transmission showed Zex Kaltar watching in horror as his subordinates on the bridge began exhibiting unmistakable signs of amusement. Even his highest-ranking officers, previously stoic and obedient, were struggling to maintain composure as their screens displayed the timeless scene of Charlie Chaplin navigating the automated feeding machine in modern times. Turn it off. The Supreme Overlord shrieked. This is unauthorized emotional stimulation. But the more the Vexeri tried to suppress the transmissions, the more they spread. The resistance movement, the free expressions, had apparently been waiting for exactly this opportunity. With the neural suppressors offline and human comedy providing cover, they emerged from hiding throughout the vessel. Captain, Liu reported, monitoring the proliferating transmissions from within the alien ship. The rebellion is spreading exponentially. Lower-ranked Vexeri are removing their status harnesses. And the weapons systems? Chen asked. Powering down, Patel confirmed. They've lost weapon control to the insurgents. On the screen, Supreme Overlord Zex Kaltar appeared to be having a complete meltdown. 12,000 cycles of perfect order, destroyed by primitive emotional contagion. But even as he raged, something remarkable was happening. His own scales, previously maintained in rigid patterns denoting his supreme status, began shifting involuntarily. Colors flowed across his surface in waves that matched his increasingly uncontrolled emotional state. Supreme Overlord, one of his officers said, no longer using the formal tones of before, Perhaps we should consider that the founder engineers were mistaken about emotional stratification. Heresy. Zex Kaltar spun toward the speaker, but found himself facing a bridge crew that had universally abandoned the strict postures of Dominion protocol. Some were openly watching the human entertainment on their screens, appendages moving in what could only be described as laughter. The Supreme Overlord's resistance finally crumbled when a scene from The Princess Bride played across his own command console, the famous Battle of Wits scene. Despite himself, a chirp of amusement escaped him. The moment was transformative. The chirp became a full laugh, perhaps the first genuine laugh ever permitted from a Supreme Overlord in 12,000 cycles of Dominion history. The transmission to the Curiosity Unbound suddenly cut off, leaving the human crew in suspense. "What now, Captain?" O'Neill asked in the silence that followed. Chen stared at the blank screen. "We wait, and we prepare for either renewed hostilities or something entirely new." Hours passed. The Vexari warship remained in position, its weapons systems offline, internal communications a chaotic flood of transmissions too numerous for the humans to monitor comprehensively. The Curiosity Unbound maintained its defensive posture, ready for any eventuality. Finally, a new transmission request came through. "It's from the Vexari vessel," Liu reported, "but not from the command center. It's originating from what appears to be their equivalent of a conference room." "On screen," Chen ordered. The view screen activated to reveal a group of Vexari, including some faces they recognized, but with startling differences. Gone were the elaborate status harnesses, replaced with simple functional equipment. Their scales flowed with colors that seemed to reflect individual personalities rather than rigid rank indicators. At the center of the group stood a familiar figure, Tix Foran, the junior officer who had sacrificed himself to help the humans escape. His scales now displayed a beautiful pattern of blue and gold. "Greetings, Captain Chen," Tix Foran said, his translator rendering his voice with newfound confidence. "On behalf of the Provisional Council of Free Expressions, I extend our gratitude for your cultural intervention." Chen couldn't hide her relief at seeing the brave officer alive. "We're pleased to see you well, Officer Tix Foran. May I ask about the current status aboard your vessel?" "The hierarchical command structure has been reconfigured," Tix Foran explained, appendages moving in what seemed to be the Vexari equivalent of a diplomatic gesture. "Supreme Overlord Zex Kaltar has agreed to serve in an advisory capacity during our transition to a more balanced social model." "Advisory capacity," O'Neill repeated skeptically. Another Vexari moved into view, Zex Kaltar himself, though nearly unrecognizable without his ornate harness. His scales displayed a subdued pattern of purple and blue. "The humans speak with justifiable suspicion," the former Supreme Overlord acknowledged. "My transition to a non-authoritarian role is ongoing." He seemed to struggle with the admission. "However, I have experienced the liberation of unrestricted emotional expression and cannot in good conscience return to the former system." The bridge crew of the Curiosity Unbound exchanged astonished glances. "What happens now?" Chen asked carefully. "We must return to Dominion space to spread what we have learned," Tix Foran explained. "The revelation that society can function, indeed thrive, without emotional stratification will transform our civilization. It will not be without conflict, but the truth cannot be suppressed once experienced." "And your relationship with humanity?" Chen pressed. "We propose an alliance," Tix Foran said simply. "Not of dominance and submission as our former protocols would have demanded, but of mutual exchange and respect. Your species has given us the gift of laughter. We offer technological exchange and safe passage through former Dominion space." Chen smiled. "I believe Earth would be very interested in such an arrangement." "There is one more matter," Zex Kaltar interjected. "Your transmission of human entertainment. This Kumdi has created insatiable demand among our people. We request permission to establish cultural exchange protocols to access more of these valuable resources." O'Meal grinned. Wait until they discover cat videos. We would be delighted to share our cultural heritage, Chen confirmed, shooting her tactical officer a warning look. As first steps toward lasting friendship between our peoples. As the transmission ended and preparations began for formal diplomatic relations, Chen found herself reflecting on the extraordinary turn of events. Humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization had nearly ended in conflict, only to transform into revolution and alliance through the power of human humor. You know, Dr. Kuznetsova observed quietly beside her, in all our preparation for first contact, all our concerns about technology gaps and cultural misunderstandings, no one ever suggested our most powerful weapon might be our ability to laugh at ourselves. Chen nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps that's the true human advantage in the cosmos. Not our technology or our adaptability alone, but our understanding that power structures that can't withstand a good joke probably aren't worth preserving in the first place. Across the void of space, the Vexari warship's external appearance began to change, its ornate decorations reconfiguring into simpler, more functional patterns. Like its society within, it was transforming into something new, something born from the unexpected collision of an ancient empire with humanity's irrepressible spirit. And somewhere in the vast command center of that ship, the former supreme overlord of a 12,000-cycle tyranny was watching Charlie Chaplin eat machine-fed bolts and laughing for the second time in his life.